Please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Today's meeting was noted in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. This commission acts in review and recommending capacity for comprehensive plan amendments, text amendments to the Charleston County Zoning and Land Development Regulations Ordinance, rezonings, and plan developments. The commission has decision-making authority on road name change requests, public project reviews, appeals of administrative decisions on final plats and subdivision matters, as well as all other matters pursuant to Chapter 29, Title 6, Section 6-29-340 of the Code of Laws of South Carolina as amended. If you wish to speak at today's meeting, please fill out the sign-in sheet by the door. My name is Pete Pilatus. I'm Vice Chair of the Commission. Cindy Floyd is not able to attend today. And for those who cannot see nameplates, to my right we have Luke Morris, Marlena Davis, and Adam McConnell. And to my left we had David Kent, Warwick Jones, Logan Davis, and Kent Prauza. Got it. Also seated to my right is Attorney Mark Bell, and to my left, Joel Evans, the Director of Zoning and Planning. And I will ask Joel to introduce staff in attendance.
Yep. Staff Emily Wynn, who's at the podium. She'll be presenting the one case we have. Emily Piggott is here as well, sitting in the audience. We also have Andrea Melsick. She's the Deputy Director of the department, and Savannah Murray and Monica Eustace, who you will hear from today. They are going to be presenting our comprehensive plan amendment draft suggestions, and we'll get into that a little bit more after the case.
All right, thanks, Joel. I would like to remind you that in order to get a good recording of the meeting for the minutes, please speak loudly and clearly into your microphones, and please do not talk over one another. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the January 9, 2023 meeting. Is there a motion and a second?
So moved. Second.
All right, I'm going to ask for a roll to be called.
Thanks. Logan Davis?
Aye.
Marlena Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Jones?
Aye.
David Kent?
Aye.
Mr. Adam McConnell?
Aye.
Luke Morris?
Aye.
Chair Pilotus?
Aye.
And Mr. Kent Prausa?
I just have a comment. I don't know if I just want to interject. Maybe a Scrivener's error. I noticed my name's hard to pronounce too, and I guess it's hard to spell, but it was misspelled in the minute. So it's a P instead of K. So that's the only comment I need. I don't really think it would warrant a motion to amend. Otherwise, I vote in favor.
Awesome, thank you. The ayes have it.
All right. Thank you. Next, we'd like to recognize our outgoing commission member, Ms. Susan Chavis. Ms. Chavis is not able to be in attendance today, but certainly wanted to acknowledge her. She has served on the Charleston County Planning Commission from 2011 to 2022. While on the commission, she served on the Affordable Housing Committee, the Short-Term Rental Committee, and the Historic Preservation Committee, as well as a contributor to the Resilience Element. Ms. Chavis could not be here this afternoon, but wanted to give her that special recognition for her 11 years of service to the commission. So next item on the agenda is a request to amend PD 24B, the West Charleston Business Center Plan Development. I'll ask Emily Wynn to present that for us.
Good afternoon. This is a request to amend Plan Development 24B, the West Charleston Business Center in West Ashley at the corner of Paul Cantrell Boulevard, Orleans, and Savage Roads, to allow for personal service uses, including gymnastics studios. A little bit of history. The West Charleston Business Center Plan Development, PD 24, was originally approved in 1985 and the property was developed according to those original regulations. It was amended to become PD 24A to allow for a wider range of food and service uses. The original PD 24 specified that 24,768 square feet along Orleans Road must have retail uses, while the remaining 47,552 square feet must have office and professional uses. This requirement was maintained in the PD with the approval of the PD 24A amendment. Another amendment was applied for in 2014 and approved in 2015, which eliminated the square footage requirements for particular uses and replaced those square footage requirements with a total existing square footage, as well as updating sign and parking requirements and making clear in the PAD that the property had already been developed. This amendment was requested following the applicant applying for a business license and zoning permit for a proposed gymnastics studio in one of the units, and staff finding that the use is not currently allowed in PD 24B. Staff advised the applicant they would need to amend the PD to allow that use, so that is what they are doing here today. This is where the property sits within the county. The future land use designation is commercial. As you can see, the current zoning is PD, and the subject property is already developed with 5 buildings with office and commercial units in each building. Surrounding properties are developed with similar office and commercial uses, as well as single-family residential and multifamily residential, Brighton Place, which is kind of diagonal across that intersection. It's in flood zone X. Here's an aerial view to the north and to the south. This is the subject property, and actually the subject units, Unit 100A and C, are proposed to house the gymnastics studio. You'll see this is the intersection of Orleans and Savage Road from the property, as well as adjacent properties across Savage Road. This is the adjacent property, and it has a Roper St. Francis physician's office on it. Requested amendments to the PD include the use or the addition of personal service uses, including gymnastics studios, to the list of allowed uses. And staff finds that all approval criteria has been met and therefore recommend approval. And this request was noticed as required, and no public input was received for this request.
All right. Thank you, Emily. We appreciate the comprehensive report. Are there any questions for staff from commission members? Kent.
Thank you. First, I'd like to compliment the staff for such a great presentation. It's really very thorough. I guess my main question or some comments, some concerns, it was approved back in '85. That was before the Comprehensive Planning Act, so there was no state enabling legislation that governed plan development ordinances. They're basically promulgated, I guess, on home rule. But now there are. And I assume that the county, will hold them to the current standards as well, which the current PD requirements are basically for kind of mixed use things with residential and company commercial zoning, things like that. Which doesn't seem to be occurring here. I guess those are just some comments and concerns. I guess it seems like just a sort of standard suburban strip commercial development. But I guess my main question is, wouldn't it be better off just to rezone it to a commercial zoning district classification that would allow the uses that are proposed? I guess that would be maybe your CC that would allow commercial retail sales or sales and office uses and personal service businesses all at once, so they wouldn't have to keep coming back every time they need to put a new use in there?
So the way PDs kind of work in Charleston County, we do allow single-use PDs. it provides for flexibility not only in uses, but in setbacks and things of that nature. PDs also will allow you to limit uses in a way that a straight rezoning might not. For example, a straight rezoning to community commercial, that would turn into allowing gas stations, more high-intensity retail. So I believe that the intention of this plan development was to limit those uses, still allow certain commercial uses, but limit them largely to, business uses, office space. That's my understanding of it.
Well, that is helpful, and maybe I'll just throw this in there, and that'll be that. That perhaps there should be some type of zoning district classification that would allow retail, office, and personal service uses without allowing gas stations or open lot sales or things of that type of use, or perhaps a different type of approval authority to it, such as a conditional use or a special exception. Because it just seems kind of tough for them to keep coming back every single time they want to do a use that's not allowed. And of course, they wouldn't, I don't think they'd want to put a gas station on here or turn it into a car lot or anything like that. Anyways, those are just my questions, concerns, comments. Thank you for your
absolutely.
response.
Ms. Davis?
On the notifications, I'm just wondering a little bit more about the letters that were sent to the Johns Island interested parties list, specifically because this is a property in West Ashley.
Yes, I believe that is a typo. It was sent to the St. Andrews interested parties list. My apologies.
Any other questions? Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in support of this request? Is the applicant?
I'm the applicant, but I don't need to speak.
Okay. And is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Okay. So is any motion or any other discussion from the commission?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I'll ask for the roll to be called.
Mr. Logan Davis,
Aye.
Ms. Marlena Davis,
Aye.
Mr. Warwick Jones,
Aye.
Mr. David Kent,
Aye.
Mr. Adam McConnell,
Aye.
Mr. Luke Morris,
Aye.
Mr. Pete Palutis,
Aye.
Mr. Kent Prause.
Aye.
Okay, the ayes have it.
Okay, the ayes have it. County Council will hear this request at an upcoming public hearing on March 7, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. in council chambers, and also at their March 16, 2023 Planning and Public Works Committee meeting at 5 p.m. The request must then undergo 3 readings for approval at council's discretion. The next item on the agenda is an update of the comprehensive plan review. I'll ask for staff, I guess Monica and Savannah, to present that for us.
And just to recap, to follow up on what we discussed last meeting and what Monica and Savannah are going to be doing, we are in our 5-year review for the comp plan. This is the very beginning of that process. The first thing we did was we sent out a survey back before Christmas and the beginning of December, I believe it was, and in November. We got results back from that survey, and what you'll see in this presentation is how we have taken that information and categorized it through color coding, both in a simple table that you'll see word for word of what the survey stated, and then in the actual text of the comp plan, the document, there is a strike through and additions in blue that staff did themselves. That is basic, and a lot of it is data, these 4 elements. We specifically chose these 4 elements to start with because we know that the data is there, so that should be very cut and dry. But you'll also see in the green that those were things that staff had reviewed and suggested as potential changes to the comp plan edits based on the information that we got from the survey. And the survey color coding is a little bit different. We got information from the public in the survey that was actually addressed in other elements. And so we note that, and Savannah and Monica are going to be covering that with you. There are also things that are suggested that are highlighted in yellow that we thought were good suggestions from the public. It made sense to us. So we incorporated the majority of those into the comp plan edits as the color green. And then we have the blue, which indicates those that are not applicable to the comp plan. You'll see what those are. And that's about it. So again, this is just the beginning of the process. We're not, whatever decision is made today, we just want to get a general idea that you're okay with these edits, because we're preparing this and with the other elements of the comp plan, and we will be taking that out into the public and actually having community meetings. And then after we get that additional public input from in those community meetings, we'll be bringing that back as potential edits as well. So this is the very beginning of that process. Just wanted to let everybody know where we are.
All right. Thank you, Joel.
I'm having some technical difficulty. I can need to scroll down.
Hey, Andrea, that monitor down there is not working. No. Did you ask? That one's fine, but yeah. For those that might want to read it on the screen rather than the iPad.
All right, we're going to start with part 1, which is the introduction and the background. Again, like Joel said, we have the blue text, which are changes proposed by staff. And if there's green text, that would be from the public input survey. And strike-through text is text that's proposed to be deleted. The changes in part 1 that we made are minor changes, corrections to the verbiage, and things like adding energy element to the sustainability. Adding sustainability to the energy element and adding resilience element itself. And you'll see those at 3.10 and 3.11. We also amended these sections on the authority for the comprehensive plan. I'm sorry.
Need to scroll for you while we talk?
That would be great.
I got you.
Okay, thank you.
The down button? That works. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. The authority for the comprehensive plan, which was amending and updating these sections to include the most up-to-date information, amending the history of planning in the county, which again was just reiterating what had been done previously and where we are right now. And the section on plan amendments, reviews, and updates, where we talked about the, sorry. we talked about the previous update and what we've done since then, how we are working on this 5-year update and getting the comments in and out to the public. There were no green lines in this section, but that will come in future sections. In Part 4, which is definitions, index of resources, and Appendix A, there were no changes that were proposed to this section at all. So all of that is proposed to stay as it is. The next section, we get into the elements. And we're going to be going over Chapter 3.2 first, which is the economic development element. But we'll also go over natural resources, cultural resources, and community facilities. In the economic development section,
Hey, Monica, when you're going through these, if you're trying to point out a specific page, could you tell us the page number?
I sure will.
Yeah.
Go to page 63, and that is the beginning of the economic development element.
Oh, God, how do you work this bloody thing?
And in the economic development element, there were many changes that were proposed by the Economic Development Department. Some sections were removed or merged with other sections, and some new sections were proposed by the Economic Development Department. For example, in the automotive sector and aerospace sector, those were combined under the manufacturing sector now. So those individual portions are no longer found in here, but they're combined under the new element.
And what page are we on right now?
That is,
Like page 67 is on the screen.
There we go.
The economic development element starts at 128 in your packet.
the economic sector composition is on page 72.
Here's the difference. The packet that you have is the full packet that's out there. So look at the page number on the bottom right of each page.
Right, that's what we're
That's
looking
what
at.
you're-
Yep,
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep. It's 60, 67, 68. It's lining up with what's on the monitor, right? Yeah.
okay. The new manufacturing sector is on page 77. And like I said, that combines the two previous sections of the aerospace and automotive sectors. The graphs and charts were all updated with the help of the Economic Development Department and GIS. And On page 87, you will see a new
Don't worry about it.
economic development element need was added in green. And again, the green text indicates that it was an amendment that was result of the public input survey. And there's also on the following page, 88, a new economic development strategy proposed in ED 9 that's also a result of the public input survey. This was the question that was on the public survey. Are the goals and strategies appropriate for the next 5 years for economic development? 70.4% said yes. And this is a rundown of the comments that we received. Again, the text that's in gray is comments that were already addressed previously in other places in the plan. The green the green shaded is we've incorporated these comments into the plan. The yellow shaded is comments that are for you, for your consideration, and the pink shaded is comments that were not applicable. If you will look, if you look at, for example, on line 5 of the page 91, this particular comment was covered in under land use 7. That's strategy 7 in the land use goals. And you can see that here on the land use element goals. LU7 is to ensure developers contribute a fair share to the costs of services associated with development. If you have any questions about any of the other comments, I'm happy to try to address these. You can see, as I pointed out previously, on page 92, that we added economic development 9 as a strategy and added economic development element needs as the last comment in green.
I have a quick question. So what was added in green was added 5 years ago, or
No.
was gathered from this and then staff
Right.
put it in?
Right, that was, the
Okay.
comments that were added in green are from the survey that went from November the 17th
right.
to January the 3rd, I think.
And then yellow's up for discussion, or anything's up for discussion?
Yellow is things that were not addressed previously and not able to be easily incorporated into, like the
Okay.
green comments.
Gotcha. Okay. I think I understand. But everything's up for discussion, or no? Like, is green like, oh yeah, we're doing it? Because I do have some comments about the green that's
Okay.
added into this one. So coming from that comment about on page 87, encouraging connected equitable strategies to help foster economic success for all businesses. seems really bold, broad. Does equitable mean like equality in outcome? For the business? Like, if different industries have different demands, it just doesn't really seem like a strategy that's possible.
Which one were you on again? Could you?
It's included as a need, not
Oh,
not
on
as
the
a
need.
strategy.
Oh, the
because it
need.
is broad.
Right,
You're
right. Gotcha.
It is
Okay,
very
so I
broad. But
guess
we
I'm
can certainly-
misunderstanding
we
the
can narrow
need
it down
versus
some.
strategy.
Yeah.
Strategy kind of deal.
Right.
So-
but we can certainly work on the wording to narrow it down some.
Okay. I think, yeah, I'll have to just think about that a bit more
Okay.
because I don't. And then ED9, as far as a strategy then, increasing average hourly wages, salaries, how would, if that's a strategy, like how would that be implemented?
So this is one that came out of the housing needs assessment for the Tri-County area that was adopted by all the jurisdictions in 2014. And the idea was to work with CRDA and some of the other groups, the Chamber of Commerce, to work with industries coming in and existing industries to increase those wages to help close the gap between the wages and the cost of housing.
And that makes sense because the second part of ED9 makes sense, but the first part was, I guess, also broad, which I was like, well, how does that happen? You know, obviously through working with industries and also like education for workers to be able to increase their pay. That's a possible strategy. It was just the first part didn't seem like a strategy. So, but thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question, and I tried to capture where you were when you said this phrase, and I didn't capture the whole phrase. Developers contribute a fair share. I don't remember what the rest of the phrase was.
Okay. That was in reference to land use 7.
What page is this?
That would be
So that's in the land use element, an element that you don't see here. What we noticed in the public survey comments were, while the folks are right that those issues may not have been addressed in economic development, in that element, they were addressed in other elements. Mm-hmm. So that particular one shows up in a couple of them that you don't have in front of you today. You will in the future. But that one, land use 7, is in the land use element. So we were just pointing out it is covered. It's just not in the economic development strategies. It's covered in a different element strategy.
I guess, and the reason that I ask about that is because I think that's the beginnings of a fair assessment to put on developers. But my question would be, how do you determine what that assessment would be? Based on the size of the project or based on size of the development or whatever. But I think it would be helpful to have that set somehow, that this is what your requirement is for a developer coming to do something. That's my question.
So that's part of the implementation of that strategy. And that document that Monica went over at the very beginning, the Appendix A, the implementation strategies, there's a whole host of tools that the county can decide to use to be able to achieve that strategy. So that would be kind of the next step after the comprehensive plan is adopted. Okay, how do we implement these strategies? Well, for this one, we've got all these tools. Which one does the county want to do? And how do we get there?
And that's where the county council or other agencies would be making policy for that particular strategy. Right. So again, going back to what the comp plan is, this is the vision, the broader picture for the county. And then if whatever policies, suggestions that are in this update, that can now then start trickling down to county council and other decision makers, and even to other jurisdictions with, support from the county to help implementing these. Right.
And that, Marlena, is on, I believe it's on page 92. That was one of the comments from the public survey.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
Okay, then we'll move on to the next element. Natural resources, and Savannah will be.
Is there a way to add this in Adobe where we can click on something, go to whatever? Possibly hard to follow. Right, you say it up there. Right. Right. Yeah, I'll find out.
Alrighty. So we're going to get into the natural resources element. This element was updated with staff input. We also spoke with other departments at the county, such as the Building Services Department, the Greenbelt Department. We worked with the City of Charleston to help update some of this information, as well as Berkeley, Charleston, Dorchester Council of Governments, and the Francis Marion National Forest. Helped to provide the information to update the natural resources section. So in here, we just added some information up at the top about the rename of the energy element, which we have renamed or are hoping to rename the energy and sustainability element. And as we go down, there weren't any changes to the purpose and intent of this section. Most of the information in this section was updated just to sort of synthesize some things, but also to update it with what's current, that has changed since we first published this. So the first, we see the change to the Charleston County FEMA flood hazard areas, which would be pages, it starts on 101 and 102 in your packet, and this was updated with the assistance of GIS department, as well as the protected lands map, which can be found on page 104. Coming down to page 105, we go over a study that was done in 2020, adding some more information about the high water impacts that we're experiencing in the county, and just some additional information like you'll find on page 106 that discuss the work that the City of Charleston did in collaboration in the Dutch dialogues. So those were the main changes here. Going through, we'll notice that there were not any green lines for this section. So there wasn't anything that we as staff felt that we could immediately incorporate into the section. But there are a lot of yellow lines and things that have been covered in other sections. So there's lots to discuss in natural resources. You'll see as far as the strategies, we changed it to continue to, and this is something that we'll be doing throughout the comprehensive plan, because a lot of our strategies are ongoing and things that we'll be continuing to work on. You'll see that we have changed it to continue to, as there are things that we are currently doing in the county. So as we move down to page 116, which goes into the survey question asking if the goals and strategies were appropriate for the next 5 years, we'll see that of those who responded, 28.3% said that the goals and strategies were not appropriate for the next 5 years. And moving into some of our comments, we did have a good bit that were already addressed in other areas, such as the land use element, as well as some of the natural resource element strategies that we already have here in this section. But we did receive a lot of comments referring to taking action to mitigate and wanting to change some of the language in the goal for this section. So we'd love any comments or feedback that we had about the yellow that we received from the public in this section.
Any questions?
Yes.
Luke?
So a lot of the comments seem to be that there wasn't a lot of specificity in what our strategies are, and I don't think that I saw anything about the urban growth boundary, maintaining it, and that could be a strategy or a goal, however you want to slice that up. And earlier in the packet, it talks about essentially producing fruits and vegetables, livestock, closer to home. And so that could, I mean, it's not necessarily natural resources, and I think that some of these goals have a bit of overlap. But as far as like tangible goals, I feel like that was something a lot of comments say that this section misses. And I think that urban growth boundary and like a focus on locally produced produce can be something to look at for these strategies.
So the urban growth boundary, and that is covered in the land use section. So those comments that said that we would have, that was covered there. That is something that we've been discussing, but it is also something that we want to work to kind of emphasize and make sure everybody understands when we do begin the public process of this, is that when you have things that are too specific, it makes it difficult for, wiggle room and change as planning and land use and all that evolves. If we have something that's too, like, this is what it is, then it will make it really difficult to make those changes in the future. So it is going to be a little bit more, ambiguous and kind of not so specific, so that we do have that wiggle room to make the appropriate decisions for us in the county. But it's definitely something, and why a lot of those comments are in
natural resources.
Yellow, sorry about that. It was going to read to you guys. Because, we would never want to make the decisions for you, but if there are things, that they specifically mentioned in yellow that you guys will support, we are, super happy to use your guidance and make sure we incorporate those goals.
Any other questions, comments?
I just wanted to, and remember, we are just at the very beginning of this. So today won't be the last day to come back and revisit these if we need to. Yeah.
But we can certainly work on the idea of promoting more local, sustainable agriculture. We do have the urban growth boundary mentioned in other elements. But we can certainly work on an element that speaks to what you're talking about, sustainable local agriculture.
Would you go over the timeline again for this? I mean, so this is just to look at it, then it's going to the public, then it comes back to us. Is that kind of the scenario?
Yeah. We're going to, over the next few months, we'll be bringing to Planning Commission a format that's like this, showing where staff has made suggested edits and where what we got from the survey we've incorporated with this and this box of yellow for more consideration. And when we go out to the public later this spring and the summer, we'll be showing the public the new edited version of the comp plan and get some more information from the public. We go there with boards and we ask questions. There's questions of things to be changed. And then we bring all that back into another draft document back to the Planning Commission. And that's where, from there, there'll be at least one, I suspect 2 meetings before the recommendation to County Council.
Would it be better to have a committee get together on each one of these elements and just talk about it versus bringing it before the Planning Commission? I mean, not now, but once the public, so we can kind of talk about it a little bit. I mean, this is.
We can certainly look at that if you want, if it's something that the Planning Commission wants to do, is to break up into groups and take different elements, but.
That's how we did the 10-year update.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
It may be a little easier than, this is a little convoluted, but.
I might say, I'm not sure how you do it properly, but I think that's the right way. I agree with you.
Okay. We can look at that.
Alrighty.
Just don't everybody fight over the land use element.
Mr. McConnell?
Thanks. I guess I'm just trying to get really clear as to what you're trying to get out of this meeting now. I think that someone mentioned it might be a little convoluted, but I'm just understanding you want specific feedback on specific line items that are highlighted in yellow in this document. Is that what you're looking for right now, or you're looking for other overarching themes?
I think both. We want to make sure we got all the information to you from the public survey and from staff's kind of first cut at it, just so we could not necessarily get a recommendation, just to get your thoughts. And if you're okay with us taking this version out to the public workshops, knowing that you'll get this input that you're seeing today, plus whatever other public workshop input we get in the future to work in.
Mm-hmm. And is there, I know that this is just an update to the original comprehensive plan. Are we sticking with the sort of major themes that were established in that plan, or are we adjusting any of those
That's up to
broader
you.
ideas?
Yeah, so that's up to you. Yeah, it's a review of the plan, so you can make suggested changes to any portion of it.
Okay, thanks.
Would you rather see it formatted? We're at the very beginning here. This was staff's first crack at trying to parse this out with the survey and fold it in. If you have suggestions on, I mean, we don't have to in the future meetings, do it exactly like this. This was just our first idea of doing it. We wanted to be sure that whoever participates from the public in the survey, that there was total transparency between when they filled that out online and whether or not the Planning Commission even saw it, because that is the beginning, as you all know, that have worked in public processes. That's where some mistrust can come in, from, hey, I've spent the time filling out, did the Planning Commission even see it? Well, yes, they saw it, and so that we just didn't give you a blank sheet of paper with all these comments, we dissected into which ones we thought were already covered in the comp plan, that's the gray, ones that we thought that the Planning Commission should possibly consider, and some of those we turned to the green, right? And then the other comments, which I think everyone agreed there's nothing constructive about how those can be put into the comp plan, that people were just venting, I think, or just making their personal comments. So, yeah, that's how we decided to break it up instead of just showing you just the yellow and saying, here are the survey, here's the public comments. Well, we wanted to be sure that everyone knew that, no, there were more comments than that, and this is where they fall in the big picture.
And I'd add on to that what's missing is any input individual commissioners will have. So we have the base comprehensive plan that we started with. We have what staff has observed over the years working with the plan, holes that they see, and then the public input. So if anyone here has issues of substance where there's wholesale items they want to add, change, remove, we can certainly bring that up and have staff, talk about it as a group and make any further changes as needed.
I will say that the structure of the comp plan itself, we think as staff works really well, about how there's, and it's purposely structured that way. A lot of it is in state law, that you got to have an objective and strategies and all that stuff. It's all spelled out in state law. When we had our consultant that came on board in 2008 and helped us reorganize the comp plan that we had, they made sure that we stayed within that structure, but also had a concise enough document that had enough information that that was actually useful. Because I can tell you the comp plan before that was not all that useful. It was more of a novel than a working document. And this, to us, is more of a working document. Now, what goes in that document, the strategies, the objective, all of that, that's the stuff that gets reviewed and updated every year.
Mr.
If
Jones?
I might say, I don't have a solution, but it does frighten me somewhat. You're asking us, 9 members here to look at all of the public comments, each one of them. So you have 9 different opinions on a lot of information. I guess that's noble, but I wonder whether we're creating a big burden. Personally, I would be happy just to confine myself to reviewing what the staff thinks is relevant, rather than to go through everything.
And we'd be glad to do that. That's the kind of information that we would like to get back from. This is our first shot at, we wanted to be transparent. If that's what comes out of this, that, hey, yeah, staff, we understand what you did in blue. That's all basically raw data. Those are basically facts, that we just updated the plan. And if you want staff now to go through the yellow and you're comfortable with that, we'd be glad to do that.
Well, I certainly would be. I don't know, other people could speak to it.
And if Planning Commission would rather us do it that way, we'd be glad to do that. I think you're right, Mr. Jones, that if we got together, you get 9 people debating what somebody wrote, I can certainly tell you that from staff's perspective. We will look at each and every one. If there's something that's valid in it and we think can be incorporated, we'll be glad to do that and let you know. So, yeah, we can do that. But I would like the Planning Commission to vote on that.
Okay, well, I move, whatever
Okay.
I said.
Yeah.
That's a motion.
Okay, the motion to have staff,
That the staff review as they have done, but the commission reviews, well, I guess it has, sorry, I'm just trying to rethink it. I think that in these meetings, we critique or add to what the staff recommendations, rather than debate all of the issues that have been raised by the public. In other words, we confine our conversation largely to what the staff recommend. Is that right? Is that what I said, Joe, or what you agree to?
Well, I'm glad we're talking about it because now I'm a little confused. The yellow, each one of these elements are broken down into color coding. The yellow was the category that we wanted Planning Commission to consider the most. From what I understood, as a whole, the ones that we color code yellow, from the survey, you would rather staff look at those first and make their suggestions from that and bring it to you?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And that's what David's second is.
so, Mr. McCollum.
Can I just make a request that, and I think you will do this for transparency, but that any and all public input is continually provided to the commission? in that case.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yes.
I imagine, does that mean we would just cut out the yellow? Anything that we include would be green, and then the rest would be the pinkish color, and you'd have the gray for already addressed
Right.
in your next round of looking at this. Would that make more sense?
Well, I feel like, aren't we kind of already doing that? Because if you read the pink, it is kind of more venting issues, and I think that should be distinguished from the yellow, which is what we're already doing. Unless there's something, I feel like staff already culled through and pulled out what they found from the comments and put in green. I feel like we're voting to do what has already been done.
Yeah, sort of, but we gave it a very light touch because we wanted the Planning Commission to have, give us some direction. The green is the staff light touch. So if you want staff to go back into the yellow and drill into it a little bit more, see if there's any more that we can pull out and put it in the green, we can do that. I think for transparency, we're still going to leave everything in this format, though, to show, and then we'll just say, okay, this is everything that we could do, and let us know if there's anything more.
So we'll just have staff's opinion on more of the
Right, of the yellow,
more of the
basically.
survey items.
Yep, yep.
And where they should be incorporated and how, or if
Right,
at all.
right.
Is it possible, and maybe this is wrong, but almost to summarize the comments, like the ones in yellow, if you look in this page 118, for instance, there's a few dozen comments there in the next couple pages. Many of them are saying the same things in different ways about resiliency, sustainability, wetlands protection, environment, X, Y, and Z. And I think it would be helpful to sort of have some summary of that, like out of the 47 comments, we had 16 comments that were specifically addressing like whatever, housing, environment.
Housing related,
Yeah,
environment,
right.
right.
Just to get the topics down, to kind of get a sense of like what are the major themes that the public is concerned about, so that we are making sure that we're addressing that appropriately as we move forward with our review.
I think it's a great idea. I think we can do that, yes.
That wouldn't be in place of this. Is the idea of including all these comments is that somebody who submitted
Right.
a comment can see that it was actually
Right,
received.
but what we can do is condense it and break it into general, a few different general categories. Say, hey, just like Mr. Condell said, this is the top, and this element, these comments were about this topic. And this is how we think we addressed it, in the, because, and we'll go ahead and edit in green. This is how we think, we can't go, obviously, we can't go through each, even if you stuck to the yellow items, we can't go through each one and verbatim put that into the comp plan, or we'll start expanding it into a document that's unreadable. But maybe if we had them in categories and just picked, one or two things, and maybe not every category would be something that can be addressed, but if we can go in and pick one or two things out of that and put them in, that would work. Yep.
All right, so we have a motion and a second for staff to take the survey comments that were for planning commission consideration, to review those and suggest how to incorporate those into the draft. Close enough?
Looking at me? I guess so. I suppose to get right back, what I'm trying to do is reduce the burden for we on the Planning Commission. There's a lot of stuff here. And really, sorry guys, how many of us are going to read it all and take it in and make constructive comments? I won't give you an honest answer, you can think yourself. So I'm really trying to make the burden less so we can do it better.
Right, just wanted to make sure we're stating the motion correctly for the records. I think we got it? Okay.
And I think some of it would be defining like 12 of them for another element, right?
Well, we kind of did that in the green, the gray. And so with each element, we broke it up into the gray, the yellow, and the pink. So the gray is going to reflect where it's already addressed another element. But in the yellow, there might be some two or three common themes in there that that staff can work on if it's worthwhile adding to the comp plan itself, either as a strategy or other changing the objective. Then we'll do that, or maybe something that, look, that's just not realistic. So we don't know how to do that, in comp plan. So, but we'll do our best and we'll bring it forward that way.
Can I say, I have a lot of faith in staff, and I'm happy for the staff to do a lot of the heavy lifting.
Thank you.
And maybe all of the other things can be provided, but for us to read every one of them and comment on them is really just backpacking.
That's fine. And honestly, that's the kind of feedback from this meeting that we were looking for, to give us some direction on how you wanted us to attack this stuff.
You've been silent, buddy. Why don't you say something like that? Huh?
No, I second it. So whatever you did, I second it.
Right. Any other discussion? No, let's call for a vote.
Logan Davis. Marlena Davis. Aye. Warwick Jones. David Kent.
Aye.
Adam McConnell.
Aye.
Luke Morris.
Aye.
Pete Palutos.
Aye.
Kent Prause.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Motion carries. We'll continue on.
Can I make a couple comments, I guess, and maybe an interjection? I think it's okay if some of this stuff does overlap. As you say, it's a big picture, and all of it doesn't. Most of it will translate into an action plan. Obviously, I guess through the ordinances that the county has available at its disposal, which is the land use ordinances, and the land use element, obviously going to be very important. But I think it's okay if they overlap in a lot of areas. And one thing that I would just like to throw in there, after having reviewed the natural resources element, of course, everybody's concerned about growth and development and roads and transportation, flood and fill and cutting trees down and stuff. But I didn't see anything in there about light pollution or dark sky. I live in Allendale. I've lived there for 25 years, and the difference between what it's like today and what it was a quarter century ago is absolutely breathtakingly bad. So if I can do it, I'd like to throw something in there about that as a concern to be addressed.
Sure. Be happy to take a look at any suggestions like that. On the matter of overlapping, thinking back to the 10-year update that we did 5 years ago, we did have the help of outside consulting group to help streamline things, but one of the main things I recall from it was that we tried to reduce some of the overlap between elements, because as the plan continued to evolve and change, it opens the door to have discrepancies within the comp plan. If it says, addresses one item in land use and then somewhere else in cultural resources, but phrases it slightly different, you can end up with some of the action items not agreeing. So we want to be careful. You know, it's okay to have some overlap, but not get too much into spreading one issue out amongst several areas of the plan.
I agree. That's definitely a valid concern, but I guess almost all of the various elements really come down to land use when the rubber hits the road. How are you going to protect, how are you going to provide economic development? How are you going to protect cultural resources or natural resources? Or how are you going to be resilient or sustainable? It's basically all through your land use policies. A lot of it is, not everything. There's obviously things, say, for economic development where you can have coordination and cooperation between other entities through overarching plans and endeavors. But I think in a lot of what the public seems to be concerned with in all of these elements, it really kind of comes down to land use. But I understand exactly what you mean there, that you don't want to have conflicting information and goals and strategies in the different elements of the plan. But I think it's okay if there is some overlap in there for staff to figure out, of course.
Well, I guess we're done for the day. Right?
Yeah, we're not.
Continue on.
Okay. So moving into the cultural resources element, this, like the other section, was mostly updated just for to add in more current information and update things that have, been completed since then. You'll see here on page 126 where we discuss a survey of African American settlement communities that was conducted, and then 2 major awards that were won from that project in 2017 and 2018. And then pretty much the rest is just updates of changes that have occurred within the county, as well as some of the maps being updated. We can see those on page 131 of your packet, where the Charleston County Designated Historic Sites map has been updated. And there's also an addition referencing the W. Gresham Megget School Oral History Project that was conducted or started in 2018 and then concluded in spring of 2020. And if we go down, you'll see where the strategies in this element were updated to match those that are continuing to, ones that we are continuing to work on. And you'll see element 9 was there, but it was changed to incorporate a suggestion made by one of the public comments. And so when we come down to go into the survey, we see that 17.8% of those who responded said that the goal and strategies were not appropriate for the next 5 years. And so when we come down into the comments on page 139, you'll see in the gray that there was really only one comment where it had already been addressed in the comp plan. And it shows that that was covered in CR1 and CR3, and there may be a little more. It looks like that box didn't expand like it was supposed to. And then you'll see the green, which was added into number 9. And so these are the yellow comments. I'm not sure if there was any comments from the Planning Commission that you guys wanted to go over, or anything you had specific questions on in this element.
A lot of the comments right at the top of the yellow, there was sort of a theme for those for this one, talking about using the word should in the goal statement and changing that to shall. It says cultural, historic, and archaeological resources, unique settlement patterns of traditional Lowcountry communities such as historically African American communities and family settlements, and traditional activities such as sweetgrass basket making should be preserved and protected from potential negative impacts of growth and development. There are a number of comments that are in those yellow boxes that talked about changing that to say shall be preserved. We didn't make that change as we just felt like the goal should be a little more nebulous than that. But we wanted to bring that to your attention if that's a change that you wanted to make. That's probably the first 5 or 10 of the comments were about that. 14, there it is. Yep.
And it goes back to, just in our experience, in the comp plan language, everything is a little bit more general and sort of guides you in a direction. If we implemented that into an ordinance, that's where we would enter the word shall, because that becomes more of the direct law if something gets developed. Whereas like I said, in the comp plan, it's a little bit more generalized.
So what does that mean? We're not changing it? We're leaving it as should?
It would be staff's suggestions to leave it as should.
I go along with that.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments on this section?
Okay, the next section is the community facilities element, and that starts on page 141. We got input from a number of different departments and individuals, including environmental management, the county fire chiefs, EMS, the 911 center, facilities, EMD, the public libraries, the Parks and Rec Commission, and the school district. Most of the changes in here include updating of all the maps, and GIS assisted with that. And also updated information on environmental management on page 145. On fire on page 146. On fire protection on 148, EMS on 149, law enforcement on 150, government facilities in 152, libraries on 155, and public education facilities on 159, and continuing education at 161. Most of these changes were bringing the information up to date and getting rid of outdated facts and figures. There were green lines that were proposed to add to the strategy of CF13 and the addition of strategy CF15, and that is on page 166. You can see that the question that was asked in the survey was, are the goals and strategies appropriate for the next 5 years? And 62.8% said yes. And then you see the comments. In the gray. Most of these had to do with other elements, and as such were categorized in the gray. Bring down housing costs. It's expensive to live in the Charleston area. That's covered in Housing 1 and Economic Development 9. Elements that were added, to the strategies were, and we had multiple comments regarding areas like Edisto, lacking in parks and rec facilities or anything for the youth to do. And so we added strategy, cultural facilities 15. And that was to identify community facility needs in the rural area and implement ways to address those needs. Did you have any questions about the other comments?
Questions or comments on this section? Okay.
Quick question. We may not know the answer to this. It's just a general question, and it probably is an answer for the COG, but has anyone looked at a sort of regional, well, I have some other things about that, but a regional sort of assessment of these facilities so that, there may not be a county park on Edisto, but there's a state park there, right? For instance, right? And so, has anyone gone through that, a comprehensive study of what types of facilities we have and what entity is running them so that we can kind of spread the wealth, so to speak? Has that been done?
I don't know, but we can find out. We haven't done it, but there might be a study out there. But that's a good point.
I would like to think that the Charleston Parks and Rec have done some analysis of what parks they have, and based on population, what parks will be needed, in the future.
So I think
Mr. Jones?
I think the Greenbelt Advisory did something like this. Certainly they did an inventory, certainly when we started. Whether they've kept it up, I'm not sure. I guess I should know, but I don't know. So you might check with them, because they certainly did have an inventory, generally speaking, of this county parks and all of those sorts of things.
Correct, yes. Because that would have been important to them when they were doing their research for the acreages that would be needed to fulfill the. So maybe we can get Eric or someone from, Eric Davis is the director of Greenbelt. Maybe we can get him or someone from the Parks and Rec Center to help us with that. Maybe even come and speak to the Planning Commission if you want them to.
All right, we're just going to go over the demographics of those who responded to the survey. So as you can see on this front page, the survey was created by Monica and myself with the help of the other people in the planning department. It was advertised on our county website along with our Facebook page and Twitter. And it was also published in the County Courier newsletter. We had QR code flyers made that we had posted like at the front of our office, as well as taken to the public library with paper copies of the survey for those who weren't able to do it online. We also had it on the mobile library that goes around the county. We shared it with the 1,250 members of our interested party list, along with the board members for Planning Commission, Board of Zoning Appeals, and the Historic Preservation Commission and County Council. With these questions, you were not required to answer every question, and there were a few questions that had the ability for you to select more than one response. Okay, so on that front page, you'll just see that we kind of, asked what your age was, and do you live or own property in Charleston County? Of those who responded, 46.2% were 65 and older, 32.4% were 45 to 65, and then the next largest group of respondents we had was 25 to 44, which came in at 19.4%. And of those who responded, 97.6 owned property in the county. When we move on to the next page, which is 177 in your packet, we see that those who responded, and I included the number of responses up at the top next to the question because it did vary question to question. Johns Island residents came in first with 27.1%. Kiowa Seabrook residents followed with 15.8%, and then we have James Island coming in third at 12.1%. You'll see that in question number 4, of all the respondents, those who live here 11 to 25 years is 33.2%, and 25 plus years was the next largest group at 25.9%. And we see with question number 5 that 88.7% of all the residents and those who own property in Charleston County, those properties are owner occupied. When we go on to page 178, we see that one of the biggest reasons that people choose to move here to Charleston County is because of location, and then employment comes in next with 23.3%, but location is a big one at almost 80% of everyone who moves here. And then price came in at 18.4%, and I'll say that when it comes to price, they were talking about moving from being a renter to being able to purchase property, which was cheaper for them. With question number 7, we see that 44.8% of those who responded work here in the county, with the next largest group being not employed or retired. And then coming in third, 12.1% telework. And then the last one we have is all of the ways that those who responded interact with Charleston County. Most people use our website and email. Both of those were about 70%. And then in person, about 51% actually come to meetings and such with the county. And the others interact with us mostly by mail. And that is the end of our demographic information, as well as our first comprehensive plan update review.
All right. Thank you. We appreciate the comprehensive report. Lastly, is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak regarding the comprehensive plan 5-year review? All right. And any further discussion or commission, or any further discussion amongst commission members regarding the proposed amendments? So I know we've already voted and already voted on how to proceed with this section. All right.
I do have a question, though. So obviously, next time we're going to be looking at other elements as we go forward. Will y'all also, by that time, try to, condense this one and we'd look at that one
Yeah, I
before?
think by then we can, because basically we have everything there. We'll just look at the yellow sections, do what we can do to put them into categories, condense those into some additional green edits, and then that'll be done for these three elements. And then we'll do it. That's the only way you'll see it going forward.
Okay.
With the other ones.
Thank you.
If we're going to get public comment again, wouldn't it be better to get the comments, recap it, and then decide versus comments here, recap it, go get comments again, recap it, and then I'm just trying to streamline this thing a little bit just so we'll understand what the public wants. And then if we've had it twice and we see a theme there and we can incorporate it, make some sense. But I'm not.
I see what you're saying.
I think the missing piece is that we've asked them to comment on the existing comp plan as is, and have started to incorporate some of those changes. But what they've not been able to comment on are any changes that staff has inserted.
Right, or that staff has inserted, or that planning commission has agreed that, So basically, when we go back out into you're exactly right, Pete. When we go back out into the public, we want to have something to show the public other than the existing comp plan. We want to show what are the proposed changes.
Right, something close to what the reviewed final plan is going to look like.
Right. Yeah. And it's really not, it's very doable. We have the information, we've already categorized it. So getting it into something that we can present to the public and to you all as edits, we can do, yeah.
Mr. McConnell?
I just want to make one comment about the demographics real quick. It came up. I just want to make this statement that there is some structural inequities in this data itself. When the majority of people are retirees who live on Kiowa and Johns Island, when there's a county of 750,000 people, that these data are skewed toward landowning, retired, presumably affluent people. And I just want to make sure that that's stated here.
I think it's a very good point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and, hopefully, in theory, by having the public workshops like we had during the 10-year update, the goal was to have those located around the county where they're convenient, have them available during traditional after-work hours, that maybe we can encourage some other groups to have them an opportunity to weigh in on it. So next item on the agenda is director's remarks.
Nothing really. Our permitting has not slowed down. I think this morning in my staff meeting, my subdivision planner made the comment that we're already going to have more subdivisions in February than we did in January, which usually doesn't happen. So it's not slowing down permit-wise. We're still working with Mount Pleasant staff on updating the Mount Pleasant overlay. Working a lot with the 10-mile community. They're very interested in being part of the Mount Pleasant overlay district for more protection, and I think for some more land use changes to their neighborhood. So you'll be seeing that in the future. That's our big community project right now. Yeah. Historic Preservation Commission, we're getting increased number of applications, and we're having to revisit some of the things that the Historic Preservation Commission should be considering in the applications. We're learning a lot. That's a brand-new commission to us. It's only 3 years old, and we're going to be spending a lot of staff time working with that commission over the next 6 months. Yeah.
Thank you, Joel. Chair's remarks, I have none. So move on to chair and vice chair elections. The Planning Commission rules and procedures state that before the close of the February commission meeting, the current chair or vice chair shall call for open nominations, and members will select by majority vote of the membership one of its members as chair, and then one of its members as vice chair for the new year. The newly elected chair and vice chair shall begin their terms upon completion of the meeting in which they are elected. So I'll now open up the floor and ask if there are any nominations for the Planning Commission chair.
Yes. I'd like to nominate Cindy Floyd for chair and Pete Pilatus for deputy.
Second.
Okay. Do we need to do these separately, or can we do them together?
Unless there's any other nominations, taken together is fine.
Okay.
But I do recommend that you ask the body if there are other nominations prior to it.
Okay, so we've got a motion and a second for Cindy Floyd as vice chair and myself, Pete Pilatus. I'm sorry, Cindy Floyd as chair and myself, Pete Pilatus, as vice chair. Are there any other nominations? Having heard none, we'll call for a roll call vote.
Okay. Logan Davis.
Aye.
Marlena Davis. Warwick Jones.
Aye.
David Kent.
Aye.
Adam McConnell.
Aye.
Luke Morse.
Aye.
Pete Pilotus.
Aye.
And Mr. Prouse.
Aye.
Excuse me. The ayes have it.
Thank you. If there's no further business, this meeting of the Charleston County Planning Commission stands adjourned. The Planning Commission will hold its next regularly scheduled meeting on Monday, March 13, 2023.
Good job, Mr. Vice Chair.